Hey guys, this is Welcome to Adulting, the podcast where we encourage you to strengthen yourself this new year. I'm John.
I'm Shawna.
And I'm Caleb.
And this month we're going to be doing something a little bit different than normal. We're going to kind of be covering a whole overarching theme. Last week we talked about our New Year's resolutions, the things that we want, like ways that we can improve ourselves in the new year. So what we thought would be really good is to take 1 week in January, one topic each week in January, and talk about, a different form of some sort of resolution, something we want to make improvements on in our lives. So this week, we're going to be talking about self-care. It's a really commonly used term that a lot of us just kind of throw around without knowing what it means. So we want to talk about what self-care is and what self-care isn't. But before we do that, I want to talk about some adulting wins and celebrate those. So Shawna, how have you adulted this week?
Yeah, so as I've talked about, I've been in school, and honestly, while in school, I myself have not been eating the best. I'm like cooking healthy things for my family, but I've found myself unhealthy snacking while I'm studying and reading, which I think is a pretty common thing. And so now that I'm finally done with school, it's pretty pathetic that I waited till the end, but I am more aware of my snacking, and I'm choosing healthier options, and whether, and even dinner, where if we eat burgers, I won't eat the bun. So I've been trying to be healthier. So I'm pretty proud of that step in the right direction.
Nice. What is your go-to healthy snack then when you're studying?
Well, my unhealthy snack used to be chips and popcorn, but now I'm trying to buy grapes and peppers. Those snacking peppers, those are so good.
Mm-hmm.
So I eat those a lot. Carrots, that kind of thing.
You can also get there are some healthier popcorn stuff, or using some of that Smart Pop stuff. I know they've got some that's air popped, that's cheesy popcorn that's really low in calories, actually not horrible, and has a little bit higher fiber too. It's really good. So nice.
Yeah.
My go-to is always hummus with carrots or peppers or cucumbers or something like that in hummus. That's real good. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I feel like we should do a whole episode on healthy alternatives to junk food, because I could talk about that for so long.
We could.
Yeah. So, and actually, when I was pregnant with 2 of our kids, I had gestational diabetes. So, those times taught me how bad I really was eating, and I had to adjust. And then, of course, when you have your baby, you no longer have it, so you can tend to go back to old eating habits. But there's this fear that I'm going to develop diabetes when I'm older, so I'm trying to reduce that. So that's why I'm trying to do this now, eat healthier and be more aware.
Nice. I feel like that is doing something now for the long term is a very big adulting win. So good job. That's awesome.
Thank you.
What about you, Caleb? How have you adulted this week?
So, a couple months ago, we released an episode about cooking and trying new things. Well, it's not on the healthy snack thing, I would say, but I made buffalo wings, actually, and a homemade buffalo sauce the other day. And I actually cleaned everything up afterwards, too, because making a sauce is really messy. And so I made 2 different ones. I made a classic barbecue or buffalo sauce. And then I made a, why can't I think of the word? It's a pesto Parmesan for the wings. And they were really, really good. And my friends really enjoyed them. And I actually got everything cleaned up afterwards.
Yeah, I think that's 2 adulting wins there. The cooking of the wings and then cleaning them up. That's awesome.
Yeah, because they were messy.
Last night I made buffalo cauliflower, or yesterday for lunch I made some buffalo cauliflower. So I roasted some cauliflower and tossed it in some buffalo sauce. It was really good. My sister taught me that recipe, and the first time I made it, I put way too much buffalo sauce on there, and just everything was just sopping, soaking wet. So Dana, if you're listening, I'm sorry about that one time when I put too much buffalo sauce on there. We had a little bit of a nice conversation about that at the time, but
I think you might have to share that recipe, because that sounds really good. So just to email that to me later.
It's literally roast cauliflower and toss it in buffalo sauce.
That's
I just bought I just bought a jar of buffalo sauce. But yeah, just roasted the cauliflower with olive oil and salt, put it in the oven, and then just put some in there, tossed it. Super good.
Which homemade buffalo sauce, by the way, it is, when you make it, you realize how not good it is. It basically is a stick of butter, a whole jar of hot sauce, and whatever seasonings you want, and oil.
Yeah.
So you just mix it in, and then you just have to keep on whisking it until it gets thick. And people said, I don't like spicy, so I didn't even taste it, but everybody said it was really good. So, but
yeah.
it really isn't that good for you.
There's a reason why buffalo sauce is so good, because it's just straight butter.
Yep.
Like it's butter and
Yeah.
hot sauce. It's so good.
Everything in moderation.
Exactly. But that's cool that you got to, got to cook some new stuff, got to try some new recipes, and actually cleaned it up. So nice.
Yeah.
Good job. This week, I did something kind of like you talked about, following up on a previous episode. I finally updated my LinkedIn. We talked about networking, like
yes, one of the first episodes.
What was that, like? Yeah, like it must have been like October, November, maybe. I don't even remember. But we talked about networking, and since we did that, I just in my mind kept being like, I need to update my LinkedIn. I need to update my LinkedIn, and I like went on to update it a few times, and then just looked at it and got really depressed, so I logged off. So I actually did it. I could probably spend a lot more time on there. I need to like set aside a half hour every week to like reach out to people and grow my network. But at the very least, it doesn't say I'm unemployed in there. It has my actual job title. It has, a whole bunch of other stuff. And I accepted a couple of requests from people that have been sitting in my requests for like a year and a half. So yeah, it's a small thing that I should have done forever ago, but I updated my LinkedIn. So
it's going to be such a surprise when they open up their LinkedIn and see that you actually accepted their request.
I know. It's people, a lot of them are like people from college that I haven't talked to in like 2 years. So they're just going to get that little surprise thing. I also had one message where someone was like, hey, I know that you work at XYZ. Do you still work there? Can you connect with so-and-so who wants to get a job there? And it's like a place I haven't worked in almost 2 years now. So I just kind of ignored that message because it was pretty old. But yeah, so now it's up to date. It has the family as my, employer. So I'm very happy that I finally did this super easy thing of updating my LinkedIn. So now I need to just do that consistently,
Way to go. I know that's so hard when it comes to updating those things, and even like updating your resume. Like it really takes some time because you really don't think much changes. And then when you like sit there and really reflect and think about it, a lot has changed, and you have to really determine how you're going to word those things. So good job.
And it's not something that I go on super frequently, because with something like Facebook, I go on there just because it's nice to have a little bit of a distraction, get some funny posts or memes or pictures or whatever, but I don't go on LinkedIn ever. So it's something that I have to make a really conscious effort to be able to do that.
Mark Zuckerberg, if you're listening and you want to sponsor, welcome to Adulting.
I mean, we call out our
Email us
Facebook, or if you're on Facebook and you want to interact with some more fun and funny content, go to Welcome to Adulting Podcast. You can like us on Facebook and on Instagram. I think does that count as a segue?
That does count as a segue. You can share your adulting wins there too.
You can share your adulting wins there. Like Yinshin, who said that he applied for a graphic design internship. So he had 2 interviews over the phone. He's going to be going in for another one. So congratulations. That's an awesome win. I remember how terrifying applying for an internship was.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, half the time for the employer, like it's a big deal, but it's not as, I'm trying to think of how I want to say this. They want you to be there, and they're really excited to, one, just have some help, but then also be able to teach people and help to grow people and set them up for success in the future. So congratulations on applying for that internship, and hopefully you get it, and it can be something that's really fun and a really good networking experience.
Yes, I was just about to say that. Listen to the networking episode and learn how to build that network as you're interning.
Yeah, biggest thing when you're interning is, yes, learning what you're doing and how to do it well, but also making those connections with people so that you can, when you're applying for jobs, you can be able to already have people set up that and know in that industry. That's how I got my first job, which eventually led to my second job. If you've got an adulting win, go to Facebook and search Welcome to Adulting Podcast, or you can go on to welcometoadultingpod.com, find links to all of our social media, our Facebook, our Instagram, our email, all of that stuff there. Or you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, let us know how we're doing, and share your adulting win there. We might give you a shout out. We're going to take a quick break really quickly here, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about self-care, what it means, what it doesn't mean, and things that you can be doing to really be taking care of yourself. Stay tuned.
Hey, it's Caleb here, and as we talk about resolutions and goals this month, our friends at the Family Radio Network have launched a challenge we believe will offer you more hope, strength, and encouragement. It's called the Family 30-Day Challenge. For the next 30 days, would you listen to only the family? You can listen live and let them know what you think at thefamily.net.
Welcome back, and as we said before the break, we're going to be talking about self-care. Before we do that, I want to really quickly define what self-care is. So I did some digging, you guys. I did a little bit of Googling and some research, and the first reputable looking link said that self-care is any activity that we do deliberately in order to take care of our mental, emotional, and physical health. So, with that being said, kind of in layman's terms, what would you guys say that self-care is then?
Caleb, do you want to go?
Sure. I think self-care is after a while, you begin to notice things in your life, and the things that you notice that you want to improve, you really focus on those and start to improve in your life. But also, it is a time where you notice when things are going too fast and you begin to slow down. So self-care is a time of reflection and a time of improvement, I would say.
Yeah, and it's really a time where you take care of yourself so that you can take care of other people, which is one big thing that I hear people say consistently when talking about self-care. A lot of times it can sound like self-care is a very selfish thing, and if you're not careful, it can turn into that. But self-care should be taking care of yourself so you don't burn out and actually have the energy to care for other people.
I'm really bad at that. I'm really bad at self-care. And I guess I can recognize when I need to be better about it, but I just don't make time for it, I guess. So this is an episode where, like, I should be listening instead of speaking. But, yeah, I guess my biggest thing is when I need self-care is I go to Bible study. That's what helps me, like, re-energize.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so would you say that it's the being around other people, studying God's word, or kind of a combination of those two that is the thing that really recharges and re-energizes you?
It's the focus, I think. I feel like when I have a busy day and a lot on my plate, I get stuck in my head and I lose the big picture and I realize it's all going to work out. So I have to go to the word to be like recentered on what's important and the big picture and that kind of thing. It just gives me peace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that when talking about what self-care is, the biggest thing that I relate to and find the most is that type of thing that recenters and refocuses you. So for me, a lot of time that's reading. Not necessarily just reading something that's fun and exciting, though it can be that, but something that will really cause me to focus, something that maybe it's one of my favorite theologians or an author I really like, or on a topic that I really enjoy. So even if it's something that's a little bit more dry seeming, I can still really like that, because then that causes me to refocus, causes me to think, and yeah, it really builds me up both mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, I would, if I could be completely honest, self-care is kind of a new concept to me. It's something that growing up I never really paid attention to. A lot of times in church growing up, there was always talk about the Sabbath day and all of that, but I didn't know what that all entailed or anything like that. I thought it was just a day of like doing nothing and just laying around playing video games, not even doing any chores or doing anything around the house that needed to get done. Like, I was doing nothing. Mm-hmm. And that is not what self-care is. And so it took me a while to fully understand what that actually is.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that self-care is not doing nothing. Self-care is not just being completely just a vegetable basically, like I can sometimes do on a Saturday. And I think it's really important to also define what self-care isn't, because a lot of times, especially when I was first learning about self-care, I would kind of hear it in a joking context where people would do the whole "is this self-care" type thing. And so they would be talk about, eating a whole pizza and a pint of Ben and Jerry's and say like, "Is this self-care?"
I told you that just the other day. No.
I think I've heard that so many times. I've done it as self-care, that kind of like if there's something that's emotionally hard, or if I remember after we had talked about this in the dating episode, but after there was a girl that I had asked out, we had gone out on one date and then I asked her on a second one and she said no. I just basically went out and got a pint of Ben and Jerry's, or not a pint. Is that what they come in? Yeah. A pint of Ben and Jerry's, and that was my quote unquote self-care after that. But self-care is not something like that. It's not something that is actually harmful. It's also not something that's selfish. So sometimes you can say, hey, I'm going to take care of myself and, do something that either is inconveniencing someone, or I'm just not going to talk to anyone today. And I'm going to, whatever you want to say about that. But it's not something that's going to hurt other people or that's going to negatively impact other people so that you feel better.
Yeah. And I think just kind of going off of that and defining it and understanding what it is, I really think a lot of us, I don't think I'm the only one, didn't really fully understand what it was until pretty recently. Like even just the word self-care, that was new to me just even years ago.
And
Okay, so trying to define self-care. So this is something that obviously I'm trying to learn the exact definition of because I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of been, I hate the word pushover, but I guess people pleaser. Like I will keep adding things to my plate to help other people. And I've been learning to say no because I need to. So is that considered self-care? Because I'm doing what I need to be like happy in the workload I have?
I would say yes and no. If you are instead using that time to do something that is re-energizing and that's equipping you to be able to do the other things you're doing well, I would definitely say yes. If you're saying no and then just going and eating a whole bag of potato chips and just binging Netflix, no, that's just selfishness at that point. But yeah, I think that's another big part of it, is learning to set those boundaries to be able to kind of have that time set aside for yes, rest, for recharging, which is, again, Caleb, you mentioned the Sabbath, having a day of rest. That's a really biblical concept, but it's a slightly different way of looking at it, and really a new word for that concept, which has been around since literally the first week of existence. So yeah, there are a lot of things that are self-care, a lot of things that are not self-care. One thing that I've heard some people say is that if it's something that you have to force yourself to do, then it's not self-care, which I kind of agree with, but kind of not. I would say that if it's something that either during or immediately after you feel recharged, you feel energized, something like that, then it counts as self-care. So I go to the gym about 5 times a week. I hate working out. The actual act of working out, I hate doing, but I really feel, a lot of times I'll feel just amazing afterwards. That high you get right after going to the gym, that is something that I love, and I love that feeling. And so a lot of times I'll go to the gym just so I can get that feeling afterwards, because that's something that gives me energy, allows me to then do my job, interact with other people, be able to be kind of emotionally recharged and physically recharged as well. I just said recharged really weird, but I think I added an extra ED. But yeah, so that's one example of self-care for me, of something that maybe it's something I don't like doing at the time, but I really love immediately after, or the effects of it are something that I really, really enjoy doing. I think the reason why I wanted to do this episode, especially in our series on New Year's resolutions, is that this is something we kind of all know we need to do and all want to do, but especially when you're an adult, when you are working, when you are a mom, when you're a homeowner and have to mow your lawn and have to take care of the dog and have to do stuff either at church or the Bible study or whatever the 50 million other things you do, it's really easy to just keep going and keep going and keep going and just get burnt out really quickly and really easily. And so especially when you're taking time at the beginning of the year, make sure you put one thing in there that's kind of a self-care thing. So maybe that's a hobby. Maybe you love, I don't know, bird watching, or maybe you love model trains or making coffee, or
You do not understand our generation at all.
understand our generation.
Where,
I literally,
what year were you
I,
born,
I
man?
literally was like going through the list of hobbies in my head and couldn't think of any hobbies.
I was thinking of my grandpa the whole time.
Let me rephrase. Maybe you really enjoy playing video games, or reading comic books,
Traveling.
or traveling, or trying new coffee shops and new restaurants, or things like that. There we go. Maybe you like getting the senior citizens discount at the local supper club.
And like, am I not going to figure out self-care until I'm old?
You're not going to figure out self-care until you start bird watching. It's fun to watch birds. Maybe you like hiking. Maybe you like all those types of things. Whatever. If you do like bird watching and model trains, no shame. That's totally fine. Whatever your hobby that you enjoy doing, find those things you like doing. Set aside time for it, so that you can be recharged and re-energized to then go and do the things that you are passionate about, but that do take a lot of emotional and, mental energy.
Mm-hmm. And so, as we're entering this new year, I got a question for you guys. So, a popular thing as well is mental health days, where I just take a day off of work and I take a time just to really recoup and get right. During the summer here, it can be really crazy, especially for you. John, it can
And
be
Shawna.
super crazy. And
Shawna and I both have a super crazy time in the summer.
Like the summer just is go, go, go. And like even this past year, I realized that I only took like 2 days off this summer and I saved everything up until the winter. And I realized I can't do that again because of how crazy it is. Are mental health days considered self-care?
Yeah, I would definitely consider that self-care. But again, it depends on what you're doing on those mental health days.
Right.
Because I am notorious for taking time off, especially during a holiday. You mentioned I did the same thing where I just had a whole bunch of time off near the end of the year. And I know that over Thanksgiving, I had the whole week off. And I basically did nothing that whole week, and then came back just as tired and just as exhausted going into a super busy couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take a mental health day, that is great. Take a mental health day, but do it intentionally and kind of have a plan of, okay, I'm going to take the mental health day. I'm going to take some time. I'm going to maybe read. I'm going to maybe go for a hike. I'm going to get outside, get some fresh air, spend time doing this thing I enjoy, so you get recharged and mentally and emotionally ready.
That's
I was
good.
going to say, when you take mental health days like that where you don't do anything, which I've done before too, I end up feeling worse, like at the end of the day, and icky and like unaccomplished. I don't like that feeling. Even though like in the midst of it, I'm like, oh, I don't want to get up and do anything. But it's almost like good for me, and that's considered my self-care when I can get stuff done and get caught up, because then I feel like I can breathe again.
Absolutely. I think also what's really important is going off of that, especially for me for self-care, is where you're going and what you're doing. Just during that time over the holiday season, I had every Friday off in December. And my first Friday, I was just sitting around at home and I finally just had to tell myself, all right, you're getting out. And I drove around for a while, and I was really, that whole time while I was driving, I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't just sit around. I can't do this. And I went to a coffee shop. At first, I'm like, I'm just going to write down my expectations for this next decade. That's what I want to do during this time over the next month, is really take time and reflect on where I'm at, where I want to be in the next 10 years. I got to the coffee shop, and I am not a coffee shop scene person, I discovered. So I was just sitting there.
That hurts my heart so much to hear, Caleb.
I was hearing some conversations where I'm like, I'm sorry, coffee shop people, these are the most useless conversations I've ever heard in my life. But it's a judgment. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just going to say, I'm going to interrupt you really quickly to say, I think that's so important to know what is and what does and doesn't work for you for self-care
Right.
too. Because I love coffee shops. I love overhearing, like in the background, overhearing those stupid conversations while I read something. But that's not for everyone. So
Right.
whatever, I'll let you finish your story now, but whatever those things are that work for you, find those things. So
Right. And
yeah.
so actually right next to this coffee shop is a family bar, restaurant kind of place. And I went in there and they had sports on and sports talk and music that I like. And so I just sat in there and I sat there for about 3 hours, I think, just thinking and writing. And it got me in that zone where by the time I was done with it at the end of the day, like I got home, my wife was like, "Why are you so happy?" I felt like I really did self-care well that day.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as we're wrapping up this conversation, I want to take a couple of seconds. I know you just shared something that you found really helps for you for self-care, but just kind of do a really quick rundown on, some examples from each of us of what we like to do for self-care, things that we want to be doing for self-care.
I have recognized that I can't put it off. So I think that we tend to say, I'll take my self-care time after I do this, and then after I do this. And then it never happens because you always have things to do. So I have just recognized that I need to allow myself to take time to do my self-care day or whatever, or even like an hour. And by doing that, I have to accept like my husband's help to allow me just to go out, which he does all the time, but I have this problem with feeling guilty. Even though I have no reason to and he gives me no reason to, I still feel guilty. Like I should be helping out with the house with the kids. So I think the first step is to allow yourself to actually have that time and then make it part of your to-do list, not a reward after your to-do list.
Mm-hmm. And I think going off of that, I obviously we all have super long and crazy to-do lists, but I always need to remind myself to cut myself some slack to do things that I enjoy doing. I am a huge comic book nerd, love reading comics. I was at a coffee shop that's actually in the library in Green Bay. It's a great place. You should check it out. Anyways, but they're not sponsoring us, so I won't say the name. So I was in the library kind of leaving, and I kind of had a second where I was like, okay, I'm going to go check out the comic books, see what they have, because they have a bunch of comics. So I got a couple comics. Yesterday, I just spent a lot of time reading some comics because I needed to relax. I needed to recharge. And it was a really good time, really helpful. And it was something that a lot of times I'll feel guilty if I spend time doing something like that. But it was super helpful to recharge and refocus. And then I was able to then go and be productive later on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what else too is, so sometimes when like friends want to get together, of course I always want to, and I love doing that. But sometimes, I don't know, do you guys ever feel like too tired to go and get together with friends? But then when you actually do, you come back and you feel so energized.
That's every Friday for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely say I feel like some days it can be self-care to say, no, I need to just take time to rest. I've definitely had those days. More often than not for me, then I have to force myself to do it, and I realize how much more I enjoyed it. That happened, again, this last weekend on Friday. I had some people who invited me to a big, a big kind of party type thing. And there was a lot of people over, a lot of us doing stuff. And when I first was going there, then my social anxiety kicked in and I was just thinking, oh, this is going to be miserable. I'm going to hate it. I had a great time. It was really fun. There were a lot of people I almost never see who I don't know super well, who I got to know really well. And we had a really good time. So yeah, I definitely agree with you that sometimes good to not. A lot more times it's good to force yourself to do it so you can grow from that.
Yeah, I think self-care is kind of like taking a leap. Like it really is just trusting that even though you're not comfortable, that this is going to stretch you and grow you. And it's sometimes scary to take that leap, or even maybe not scary, but it could be many emotions. Just trying to take that leap. When you do, though, like you said, Shawna, sometimes you just feel refueled and re-energized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would definitely encourage you, if you need to take some time to take care of yourself, get refueled, re-energized, again, so that you can then go and be more productive, more effective at work, better in your relationships, have more emotional energy and capacity to help others. Definitely would encourage you to cut yourself some slack and be able to do that. We say that at the very end of every episode, but I want to say that up top on this part too. Also, we would love for you to share some of your favorite ways to kind of take care of yourself, your favorite self-care activities. Maybe you do like bird watching and model trains. Maybe you like something more cool, apparently, than my ideas of hobbies. We'd love for you to share some of your favorite self-care ideas with us on our Facebook page. We mentioned it before. You can go to facebook.com or on Instagram, search Welcome to Adulting Podcast. You can find more information there. And we'd love for you to share us with a friend, either on there or just tell a friend about us. We'd love to be able to interact with them as well. And it's a great way to, telling someone is the best way for our podcast to grow. And we'd love to have you be a part of that. Again, go to welcometoadultingpod.com. Find more links to stuff there. You can share adulting wins. You can share, again, your favorite ways to do self-care, and find all sorts of other great ways to listen and interact with us. I also want to thank the Family Radio Network for producing this show, allowing it to exist. Without them, Welcome to Adulting would not be a thing. So thank you guys so much. I want to encourage you to go to thefamily.net. You can find all sorts of great stuff on there. You can listen to music that'll really encourage you, that'll give you hope, strength, and encouragement. Music can be a huge part of self-care. Having the right music that will really boost your mental and emotional state, that's a huge part of self-care. You can listen to music all the time at thefamily.net. So go on there and check that out. As we close, allow yourself to spend some time doing things that you enjoy to recharge, because you got this. Bye.